There is a moment in the second season of The Amazing World of Gumball where a blue cat mother loads her 12-year-old son into the family car, drives him out past the last buildings of Elmore into open desert, stops the vehicle on an unmarked stretch of asphalt surrounded by nothing but rock and sand and sky, and leaves him there. She does not leave him with water. She does not leave him with a phone. She does not leave him with directions. She drives away. The camera watches her drive away. And the show, which has spent the last few minutes framing all of this as comedic family bonding, does not pause to tell you what you just saw. It just moves on to the next gag. Because in Elmore, that is what family looks like. In Elmore, that is a mom doing her best. This is Nicole Watterson. This is the character the show wants you to read as the responsible one. The backbone. The only grown-up in a house full of idiots. The mother who holds everything together while her husband sleeps on the couch, and her son sets the world on fire. And this is a video essay about why, if any of this were happening in any version of reality where actions carried consequences, she would be in a cell. Not metaphorically, not as a joke, not as one of those online think pieces that uses would be in prison to mean is mildly flawed. Literally, the woman commits, over the course of the series, a sustained pattern of felony-grade behavior against her children, her husband, her neighbors, her in-laws, various animals, at least one tyrannosaur, and the general infrastructure of the town she lives in. And the show loves her. The show protects her. The show stages her worst moments as punchlines and then moves on, because the alternative is admitting what it has actually been showing you the whole time. Welcome to Cortoon. Get comfortable. This one goes deep. Let us get into it. The first thing that has to be said, before any of the evidence arrives, before any specific episode gets examined, is that the show is fully aware of what it is doing with this character. Nicole Watterson is not accidentally terrifying. She is not a character the writers lost control of. She is a creative decision, made by creator Ben Bacalé, rendered with extreme precision by a team that understood exactly what was being built. Bacalé has said in multiple interviews that he named Nicole after his own mother, and that she was based on her kick-ass personality. Her husband Richard was named after and based on Bacalé's father, and their daughter Anais was named after his sister. That is relevant here, because it means the writers were not painting this character with contempt. They were painting her with love. And the love is what makes the portrait so damning. Because what they put on screen, with affection, is a woman who physically and emotionally abuses everyone in her household, and then expects them to thank her for it at the end of the episode. And they do. Every time. They do. Let us start with the foundational scene, because the very first episode of the series, the first thing the show ever tells you about this woman is that she is violent. The DVD is the first episode of Season 1. It aired on May 3rd, 2011. It was, in production terms, the final episode of Season 1 actually made, chosen to lead the series because it introduced the Watterson family efficiently. Nicole is the first character to speak in the entire show. Her first line is a reminder to return a DVD. The second thing she does on screen, after her son talks back to her about it, is punch a hole straight through the front door. No warning, no escalation, no slow build. She asks Gumball to do a chore. He refuses. She puts her fist through wood. The show presents this as a comedic character beat, a quick gag about an intense mom. But watch it in the context of what follows. Watch what happens when Gumball and Darwin accidentally destroy the rented DVD and try to hide it from her. She does not express worry. She does not express concern. She phones home and, the moment she suspects a lie, tells them she is on her way. When she arrives and finds them fleeing, she chases them through the suburban streets of Elmore. She slams face first into a fence. She gets into a physical altercation with a neighbor's dog and wins the fight. She then mounts the dog, smashes through the fence, and pursues her own children on dogback until she crashes into a brick wall and knocks herself unconscious. That is the first episode. That is the pilot. That is the introduction to the character the show calls responsible. And here is the specific detail that matters. When she finally catches them at the video store and learns the total late fee is $700, she does not pay it. She does not explain. She tells her children that sometimes in life, you have to face the consequences of your actions. And then she tells them to run. She grabs them. She runs with them. The final frame of the first episode of The Amazing World of Gumball is a freeze frame of Nicole Watterson, Gumball, and Darwin fleeing a business they owe money to. Think about what that actually means. Think about what the show has established in 11 minutes. The matriarch of the family is willing to put her fist through a door over a chore, to chase her children through a neighborhood over a lost disc, and to flee from a lawful financial obligation rather than pay a late fee. All before the second episode has aired, all framed as charming. This is the template. Every behavior the show will spend the next decade expanding on is already present in the pilot. The violence, the flight from consequences, the willingness to endanger her children. The framing of it all is fun. The show is not hiding what Nicole is. The show is presenting it openly and trusting that the laugh track in your head will do the work of burying it. The important word in that last sentence is trusting, because the show, for all its chaos, is an extremely disciplined piece of writing. Things that look thrown in are almost never thrown in, and Nicole, specifically, is one of the most carefully constructed figures in the whole ensemble. Her backstory, her parents, her relationship with Yuki, her relationship with Richard, her job at the Rainbow Factory, her estrangement from her mother and father for 20 years, all of it is planned, which means her violence is planned too. The show is not embarrassed about showing her this way. The show is committed to showing her this way, which means the question is not whether she is violent. The question is why the show wants you to see it. And that is what this video is going to walk through. Not a list of moments where Nicole behaves badly. A careful examination of a pattern that the show, over the course of its run, builds with the seriousness of a case file. What the viewer is being shown, one episode at a time, is a woman who is cracking under a particular kind of pressure, and who takes that cracking out on the people she is supposed to protect. The show frames this as comedy because animation about a suburban family is, by genre, comedy. But underneath the framing, the architecture is the architecture of a crime. And the person committing that crime is the mother. Before we move on, if you are enjoying this analysis, please consider subscribing. It helps the channel tremendously. The clearest single episode to begin with, the one that exposes the entire pattern in its purest form, is The Fridge. This is the 4th episode of Season 2 of The Amazing World of Gumball. It is the 40th episode overall in the series. And in terms of the Nicole case file, it is Exhibit A. The episode opens on a kitchen. The whole family stands at attention in front of the refrigerator. On the refrigerator is a chart Nicole calls Reach for the Stars. It is a grid with rows of weather icons, rising from rainy clouds at the bottom to stars at the top. And on the chart, Nicole tracks every family member's weekly achievements. Anais announces that she has discovered a new form of bacteria in the fridge and won a science award for it. Nicole places her in the sunny clouds row. Darwin has learned the mating call of the mockingbird. He goes in the cloud row. Richard has invented a sausage pin. He also goes in the cloud row. Nicole places herself at the very top, in the star row, for winning her company's paintball day. Then she turns to Gumball. Gumball, Nicole announces, has achieved nothing. He is the sole occupant of the rainy cloud row, at the bottom of the chart. The camera lingers on her face. She is not worried about her son. She is disappointed in him. What happens next is the thing. What happens next is what the episode is actually about. Nicole decides that her 12-year-old son is going to become a winner, and she decides that this is going to happen whether he likes it or not. Over the course of a single montage, she does the following things to him. She wakes him up at 4 in the morning. She makes him carry her up a flight of stairs on his back, despite being several times his size, and his back audibly cracks before he collapses on the cement. While shouting that a winner stares fear in the face, she then puts him on the roof of the Watterson house during a lightning storm, holding a metal golf club. Let that sit for a second. A woman places her 12-year-old son on a roof in a lightning storm with a metal club. Lightning then actually strikes the chimney, destroying half of it, and Gumball finally climbs down. The show plays this as a quick cutaway gag. The show plays it for a few seconds and moves on. But the plain statement of what that scene shows is this: a woman attempting to teach a lesson that could have killed her child. And then, after the rooftop, the episode does something even more unsettling. Nicole drives Gumball out to the desert. This is not subtext. This is the episode. She puts him in the car. She drives out of Elmore until the city disappears. She stops on a desert road. She tells him success requires pain, and she drives away. Gumball literally runs after the car, dives for the rear bumper, hangs on, gets dragged across the sand, loses his grip, and faceplants. And then she is gone. He stares at the sunset, waiting for her to come back. She does not come back. A 12-year-old. In the desert. To walk home. Alone. The show never stops to register the gravity of this. The next scene simply cuts to Gumball, exhausted, trudging back into the Watterson living room. He has walked a very long way. He is tired. He finds Richard slumped on the couch, the room in disarray, Darwin and Aeneas in various states of failure over their own chart positions, and the chart itself redrawn to move Gumball up to the sun row. The episode treats his return as the beginning of the next joke. Nicole, who nearly killed her son in the desert, is now obsessing over where his marker should go on a piece of paper taped to the fridge. The absence of concern for what she just did is total. There is no apology. There is no moment of recognition. The show never goes back to the desert. No character brings up the abandonment again. And then comes the paintball sequence. The family ends up at a paintball field for what Nicole calls family bonding. It is not bonding. It is a military operation, run by Nicole, against her own husband and children. She hunts them through the forest. She picks them off one by one. When Gumball finally corners her, unarmed, and has the flag in his hand, and could simply end the game, he says something the show does not pause long enough for the viewer to fully absorb. He tells his mother that he would rather be a disappointment to her than live like this. Not that he is tired, not that he wants a break. That he would rather be a failure in her eyes than continue to be the person she is forcing him to become. And what does Nicole do in that moment? She softens. Her face changes. She tells him she could never be disappointed in him. She tells him to take the flag. And then, as he walks away, she tries to shoot him in the back with her paintball gun. It is empty. She is scrambling to reload. He hears the gun dry firing. He turns around. He shoots her first. This is not a small detail. This is the whole character in one gesture. The show tells you in that single uncaught reload that the softening was not real, that the apology was not the truth, that the moment her son turned his back, she was going to win the game anyway. That is not the behavior of someone who has realized she has gone too far. That is the behavior of someone who briefly performed realization because it was strategically useful, and then reverted to the actual goal the moment the performance ended. The show does not comment on this. It does not add music to tell you how to feel. It just shows her raising the empty gun and the click it makes when she pulls the trigger. Once you see it, you cannot unsee it. And consider what the episode refuses to do. Nicole never apologizes for the desert. She never apologizes for the roof. She never apologizes for the backbreaking. The episode ends with the family walking off the field together, Gumball taking the flag. The chart is presumably taken down, and the credits roll on a woman who, in a single week of storytime, committed at minimum child endangerment, abandonment of a minor in a remote location without provisions, deliberate exposure of a child to a lightning strike, and then an attempt to shoot her own child in the back with a projectile weapon when he was trying to walk away from the game. That is one episode. That is a single 11-minute cartoon. That is the behavior of someone who needs a social worker and a court date. The show calls it parenting. But here is what makes the fridge structurally important to the whole argument. It is not an outlier. It is a thesis statement. The show spends the rest of its run demonstrating, in episode after episode, that the woman you met in that episode is the actual woman. That is not a bad day. That is who she is. And the next section is going to prove it, using an episode that takes the exact same pattern and reruns it in a grocery store, with even higher stakes, and this time with the show's own camera drawing attention to the fact that she has become a monster. The Limit is the 30th episode of Season 2. It is the 66th episode overall. It aired on August 28th, 2013. And it is, in many ways, the episode where the show briefly drops its own framing and lets the audience see what has been hiding in plain sight. The setup is small. The Wattersons are at the supermarket, Elmore shopping. The three kids are asking for candy. Nicole keeps saying no. Anais asks if they can have chocolate milk instead of milk. No. Darwin asks for chocolate eggs instead of eggs. No. Gumball asks for chocolate bread instead of bread. No. This is a rhythm. Rule of 3. The audience laughs. Nicole asks Richard to help, and Richard, being Richard, offers the kids a chocolate bar and tells them to stop bothering their mother. Nicole kicks the chocolate bar out of his hand. This also is presented as a joke. Nicole's frustration is played as cartoonish, oversized, funny. The escalation that follows is not funny. This is the thing the show knows, but does not say out loud until the climax. The children and Richard spend the entire episode pushing Nicole, not in a normal sitcom way, but in a genuinely relentless way. They stage a fake campaign with customers piling on top of her. They convince her to get a back massage from an unqualified employee who injures her. They scheme and scheme and scheme. And Nicole, who has been doing exactly what a parent is supposed to do, which is to say no and to hold the line, is ground down by her own family until something inside her breaks. The break, when it comes, is visual. Nicole's eyes turn yellow. Her teeth become sharp. She grows claws. The show, in this moment, literally turns her into a monster. The transformation is drawn to reference the Hulk. Her makeup, by the end, has been compared to Heath Ledger's Joker from The Dark Knight. She declares that she has reached her limit, and she begins to hunt her husband and her children through the supermarket aisles. A security guard tasers her. The taser stops her for a few seconds, and then she keeps coming. Richard tricks her into running headfirst into a wall of televisions broadcasting his image, in a sequence that directly references the scene in Jurassic Park where Lex tricks the raptor into running into a steel cupboard. The televisions fall on top of her. Her hand emerges from the pile like a horror movie antagonist refusing to stay down. This needs to be stated plainly. The show, in order to convey what this woman actually is when her mask slips, reaches for imagery from horror and from monster movies. The visual language of the moment is not comedy. The visual language is the same as a slasher antagonist. Yellow eyes, bared teeth, claws, an unstoppable pursuit through an enclosed commercial space where her victims hide behind shelves. The show, which has been telling you for 2 seasons that Nicole is just a short-tempered mom, now tells you, with the full weight of its visual storytelling, that when she snaps, what is underneath is not a flawed person. What is underneath is a thing that hunts. And then, the moment that gives the whole game away. At the climax, Nicole has her family cornered. She is approaching them. She is going to hurt them. The show is not being subtle about what is happening. And then, as Richard sidesteps, she catches her own reflection. She sees her face, her yellow eyes, her twisted mouth, and she stops. She recoils. She realizes, in that specific second, that she has become a monster. Think about what that scene is actually saying. It is saying that Nicole, on some level, knows. That she has known, on some level, the whole time. That the version of herself that surfaces when the pressure builds is a version she is capable of recognizing as wrong when confronted with it directly. She does not need the kids to tell her. She does not need Richard to tell her. She sees her own face and she is horrified. The show, in this single moment, gives the lie to every subsequent episode, where Nicole loses her temper, and the show frames it as wacky. She knows. She has always known, and she keeps doing it anyway. The episode ends, as these episodes always end, with everything going back to normal. The family makes up. Nobody calls the police, despite the fact that she has demolished a commercial establishment and physically pursued civilians. The show has its resolution, but the visual evidence is still there. The yellow eyes are still there. The monster that was under the mother is still there, and it does not go away. It is going to come back. It is going to come back over and over and over again. That is the pattern that needs to be understood. Nicole does not have a temper problem. Nicole has an identity problem. There is a Nicole who cooks dinner and packs lunches and kisses bruised knees. And there is another Nicole, who the show periodically has to reach for horror imagery to depict. And the second Nicole has access to the body of the first Nicole whenever the pressure is sufficient. And the thing the show will not say directly, but the thing it demonstrates episode after episode, is that the pressure is always sufficient. The second Nicole is never far away. The second Nicole is who raised these children. And here is where the argument has to pivot. Because the defense of Nicole, the way the fandom tends to talk about her, leans on one idea: that her family is so impossible to manage that any reasonable person would crack. And there is some truth to that. Richard is genuinely exhausting. The kids cause real damage. The job is real. The bills are real. The show does not ignore any of this. But the defense falls apart the moment you look at the specific choices Nicole makes when cracking. Because a mother under pressure snapping at her kids is one thing. A mother under pressure strategically abandoning one of them in the desert is another. A mother who can contain herself in public but lets go at home is one thing. A mother whose transformations are so extreme the animators reach for Hulk imagery to draw them is another. The question is not whether she has reasons to be angry. The question is what she does with that anger. And what she does with that anger, across the entire series, is something the show is telling you is a problem, even as it insists with its final act hugs that it is not. The next episode to look at, the one that takes this argument out of the realm of individual outbursts and into the realm of sustained, deliberate cruelty, is the episode called The Hero. This is the 22nd episode of Season 2. It is the 58th episode overall, and it is, by a wide consensus among even the most forgiving fans of the show, one of the episodes that is hardest to defend. The setup is simple. Gumball and Darwin are on the school playground talking with their classmates. Masami, Banana Joe, Terry, and Hector are bragging about their dads. Gumball and Darwin try to come up with something good to say about Richard and fail. They say that he is only good at embarrassing them. They say he cannot even cook, pointing to the cement-like cupcakes he has made. What they do not know is that Richard has pulled up nearby in his car and is within earshot. He hears everything. He goes home crushed. He hides in the shed. Nicole comes home. And what Nicole does, in response to her son hurting his father's feelings, is something that, when described in plain language rather than cartoon framing, stops being funny. She refuses to feed them. She cooks raw chicken for dinner. She slaps a dirty, uncooked potato on the table. She tells them, openly, that until they apologize to Richard, they will no longer be allowed to use anything in the house that she pays for. This includes food. This includes the shower. Anais, her 4-year-old daughter, joins in, throwing Richard's cement cupcakes at them. The cement cupcakes are themselves a joke. Richard had accidentally used cement instead of flour when he tried to bake. The joke is that Nicole is now allowing her 4-year-old to throw her husband's inedible failures at her other children as a projectile weapon because they hurt his feelings. This goes on. Gumball and Darwin are not allowed to shower. They are not allowed to eat. Their clothes become threadbare. By the end of the episode, they are so filthy, their classmates refuse to sit next to them on the school bus. The bus driver kicks them off. They have to walk. They are emaciated. This needs to be stated plainly. In The Hero, Nicole Watterson withholds food from her children for an extended period as a punishment for saying something unflattering about their father. That is not strict parenting. That is not tough love. That is neglect. In the real world, that is a crime. In any real-world custody proceeding, those facts alone would be sufficient for removal of the children. And the show, which has shown you this, does not call it what it is. The show calls it a lesson. The show ends the episode with Gumball reconciling with Richard at the junkyard, and the family drawing him a picture that Richard nails to the shed wall. No apology comes from Nicole. No apology comes from Anais. The narrative frame is that Gumball and Darwin had to learn to appreciate their father, which means the narrative frame is that starving children is an acceptable teaching method as long as the lesson is about family. And the show has to know The show has to know what it just depicted, because the hero is, by fan consensus, considered one of the episodes Nicole is at her absolute worst, and it is frequently cited as a moment where the writers pushed the character further than was comfortable. That is the show's own audience, quietly acknowledging that something in the episode did not land the way it was supposed to. But here's the thing. The fandom gets wrong when they call the hero an aberration. It is not an aberration. It is the same pattern as the fridge, just aimed at a different offense. In the fridge, the crime is underachievement, and the punishment is physical endangerment. In the hero, the crime is disrespect, and the punishment is deprivation. In both cases, a mother decides that her child has failed to measure up to some internal standard, and in both cases, her response is to subject that child to conditions that would, in any real legal system, constitute abuse. The through line is not Richard. The through line is not the specific infraction. The through line is Nicole's willingness, when she decides a lesson needs to be taught, to suspend the normal ethical rules that govern how a parent is allowed to treat a child. She decides the lesson matters more than the child's immediate welfare. And once she decides that, the ceiling on what she will do comes off. Think about that pattern across the 2 episodes. In one, she drives a child to the desert and leaves him there. In another, she starves 2 of them. These are not consistent with each other as comedy beats. They are consistent with each other as evidence of a specific pathology. The pathology is that Nicole, when pushed into the role of educator, ceases to be a parent at all. She becomes a kind of system, a cold system that has a goal and a methodology and a tolerance for collateral damage. And the collateral damage is always her children. And the show, which is too smart not to notice this, has left clues. In the episode that would eventually explore Nicole's own childhood, the show is going to reveal that she was raised by exactly this kind of system. That her own mother, Mary Cinnecourt, was a perfectionist who demanded constant success. That her father, Daniel Cinnecourt, had a short temper and violent tendencies. That Nicole was called a loser by her schoolteacher, Miss Simeon, as a child, a taunt that continued even on her wedding day. The show is going to tell you, in Season 5, Episode 6, titled The Choices, that Nicole is the product of a specific kind of suffering. And then the show is going to trust you to draw the line between what was done to her and what she does to her own kids. The show never says the line out loud. It never has to. The line draws itself. That is not a small thing. That is the show writing. Underneath its sitcom structure, a quiet tragedy about cycles of abuse. Nicole is not evil. Nicole is damaged. And the damage came from somewhere specific. And the damage is being transmitted to somewhere specific. And the transmission is happening in front of your eyes in every episode where she snaps. The show will not rescue her from this. The show will not make her heal. It will let her laugh and love and fold laundry between the outbursts. Because that is what real people who hurt their children look like. They are not monsters every hour of every day. They are monsters in flashes. They are people the rest of the time. And the rest of the time makes the flashes possible, because it is what keeps everyone in the house. Before we move on, if you are enjoying this analysis, please consider subscribing. It helps the channel tremendously. To understand why Nicole does what she does, you have to look at the episode where the show finally, openly, shows you where she came from. The Choices is the 6th episode of Season 5. It is the 162nd episode of the series. And it is, without exaggeration, one of the most emotionally serious pieces of storytelling the show ever produced. The frame is a dinner. Nicole is trying, and failing, to get a meal on the table for her family. Richard is not helping. The kids are pushing every button she has. The food catches fire. Darwin sprays her with whipped cream, and in the moment before she explodes, time freezes. The rest of the episode takes place inside the pause, inside her head. The show takes you through Nicole's life, from her earliest memories to the current moment, and shows you what her childhood actually was. Her mother, Mary Cinnecourt, wanted Nicole to succeed no matter the cost. Her father, Daniel Cinnecourt, was short-tempered and prone to the same flaring rage that Nicole herself would later display. The episode reveals that Nicole's parents disapproved of Richard when she met him as a teenager at a karate tournament, and that Nicole eventually stormed out of her family home in her late teens, cutting contact with her parents. Meanwhile, Richard had been kicked out of his house by his own mother, Granny JoJo, at around the same time. The two young people moved into a small apartment next to a train station. Nicole became pregnant with Gumball. They moved into their current home, fixed it up, adopted Darwin, had Aeneas, and became the family you have been watching this whole time. What happens to a kid who grows up inside a household where nothing is ever enough? The answer, the show will tell you across its run, is that the kid becomes Nicole. The kid becomes a person who cannot tolerate the idea of not winning, because losing was the thing she was told she was. The kid becomes a person whose idea of love looks like a chart on a fridge, because love, for her, was always conditional on performance. The kid becomes a person who, when her own son says he would rather be a disappointment than keep reaching for the stars, hears her mother's voice in the sentence and loses control. Because the idea of a child who does not want to win is the exact thing her own mother raised her to prevent. And now her child is saying it. And now her child is becoming the loser she was told she was. And she cannot let that happen, because it would mean everything she did to avoid being called a loser was in vain. This is the engine. This is what the show is showing you, without ever saying it directly. Nicole's violence against her children is not random. It is not generic short-temperedness. It is specifically, surgically, a recreation of the environment she was raised in. She is not hitting her kids for no reason. She is hitting her kids for the specific reasons she herself was hit. The form has been preserved. The logic has been preserved. Only the actors have changed. She is Mary now. She is the mother now. And her children are her, the version of her that had no say. Which brings the argument to the thing that needs to be said. The phrase, cycle of abuse, is used a lot. It is used so often that it has started to feel like a cliche. But there is a reason it keeps getting used. It describes a real mechanism. Children who are subjected to certain patterns of parental behavior tend, absent significant intervention, to repeat those patterns with their own children. Not because they want to, not because they are evil, because the patterns have been installed at a level below conscious control. The patterns feel like parenting, because the patterns are the parenting they received. The only way to stop them is to notice they are happening and to refuse to pass them on. Nicole has not done that. Nicole has not fully tried to do that. Nicole, across most of the show, reproduces her mother's pressure without comment and without reflection. The show keeps showing you, and the children keep paying the bill. The fact that Nicole had a rough childhood is an explanation. It is not an exoneration. A person who was hurt as a kid does not get a pass on hurting their own kids. The fact that she was told she was a loser by Miss Simeon does not make it okay for her to leave her own son in the desert. The fact that her mother demanded impossible success does not make it okay for her to rank her 12-year-old on a chart and then send him to the roof in a thunderstorm when he fails to measure up. The show knows this because the show, at the end of the choices, has Nicole recognize that she would not trade her family for anything. And then the show has her go right back out of the pause and immediately begin laughing with the same family she was about to snap at. The resolution is a food fight. Everyone laughs. The door opens back to normal. And what the show is betting on, in that moment, is that the viewer will accept the food fight as catharsis. That the revelation of her backstory will let the viewer forgive the next incident and the one after that. And for a while, it works. The backstory does generate sympathy. It does soften what might otherwise look unforgivable. But here is the thing the show never makes you reckon with directly. The backstory does not actually stop her. She has the insight. She has the moment of recognition. And then she goes back to the same behavior. Because the insight was not a change. The insight was a breath. The engine is still running. The chart is gone. But the part of her that built the chart is still in the kitchen. That is the final piece that has to be understood before the rest of the evidence comes in. Nicole's backstory is not a free pass. It is a diagnosis. And a diagnosis only helps if you use it to change something. Think about what that means for her kids. Gumball is 12. Darwin is adopted and a little younger. Aeneas is 4. They are, all three of them, at the age where the patterns installed now will be the patterns they carry for the rest of their lives. They are watching their mother. They are learning how love is expressed in their family. They are learning that love is expressed in pursuit, in anger, in withholding, in competition. The show will show you, in The Rival, that Anais in particular has already internalized something of this. She is, as a newborn, already capable of cruelty so precise that the show builds an entire episode around it. She has already, in the show's framing, absorbed the family's default language. The cycle is not only unbroken, the cycle's next generation is already visible. Before we move on, if you are enjoying this analysis, please consider subscribing. It helps the channel tremendously. The next piece of the pattern has nothing to do with her kids directly. It has to do with who she is when her kids are not the target. Because a lot of the defense of Nicole relies on the idea that the violence is a response to family chaos. The implication being that if the family were calmer, she would be calmer. The show, probably without meaning to, disproves this thoroughly. Because when Nicole is alone, or with adults outside her household, she is still violent. The violence is not reactive. The violence is constitutive. The violence is who she is. The cleanest illustration is the episode The Fight. This is the 36th episode of Season 1. It was the last episode of Season 1 to air in the United States. And it contains, tucked inside a conventional schoolyard bully plot, one of the most revealing beats the show ever gave to Nicole. The plot is that Gumball is being bullied, or thinks he's being bullied, by Tina Rex, a Tyrannosaurus who goes to his junior high. Tina is huge. The show is careful to establish Tina's size, and even more careful to establish the size of her father, Mr. Rex, whose eyes each are drawn larger than Nicole's entire body. Gumball comes home with a black eye, which, it turns out, he actually got from running into a door, though he does not tell his mother this. When Nicole learns from Anais that Tina has been bullying him, she immediately drives him to the junkyard where Tina and Mr. Rex live. Mr. Rex is a full-grown tyrannosaur. Tina, in an earlier episode, mentioned that her father eats trespassers. Nicole tells Mr. Rex she wants to talk about his daughter's behavior. Mr. Rex, per his nature, does not want to talk. He wants to fight. And the show does the thing it almost never does. When Nicole is about to do something extreme, it cuts away. The camera stays outside. The viewer hears crashing from inside the house. When the door opens again, Nicole steps out. She is unharmed. Behind her, the entire house collapses. And in a later episode, The Routine, when Mr. Rex appears again, he has a scar across his right eye. The eye is blinded. The show does not explicitly tell you how he got it. But the chronology is unambiguous. He did not have the scar before he met Nicole. He had the scar after. The most straightforward reading, widely shared among fans, is that Nicole gave a T-Rex a permanent disabling injury because his kid was rumored to have roughed up her kid, a T-Rex. A creature so much larger than her that fighting him should have been impossible. And she did not just win. She won decisively enough to destroy his home. That is not a mother defending her child. That is not a mama bear. A mama bear responds to a threat. Mr. Rex was not threatening Gumball. Mr. Rex was a man sitting in his own house. And Gumball's black eye, as the episode reveals, was from a door. The bullying, by the end of the episode, turned out to be Tina wanting to be friends. There was no real threat. There was a perceived slight. And Nicole's response to a perceived slight was to walk into someone's home, refuse to leave when that conversation failed, and demolish the structure with the other party in it. And the show plays this, again, as a heroic beat. Fans of the show often cite this as the moment they knew Nicole was, in their phrase, the best cartoon mom ever. That is the framing the show is counting on. Mother fights dinosaur to defend her child. Underline that. Cheer. But pause on the actual content for a second. If any person you know did this, you would not think of them as a hero. You would think of them as someone who just caused serious bodily harm to a neighbor and destroyed their property over a misunderstanding. And here is the pattern that unites this episode with the fridge and the hero and the limit. Nicole's first instinct when she decides someone has wronged her family is not to talk. It is not to report. It is not to pursue that any of the normal channels a normal person pursues. It is immediate, overwhelming, physical retaliation. And the retaliation is never calibrated to the offense. A lost D, VD, earns a homicidal neighborhood chase. A bad week on a chart earns desert abandonment. A playground insult earns starvation. A bruise from a door earns the disassembly of a tyrannosaur. The response is always maximum. The response is always whatever she can do, not whatever is proportionate. And the show rewards this. The show lets her win. The show lets the violence land without consequence. Because in Elmore, if you are Nicole Watterson, the universe itself has decided you do not have to face consequences for anything you do with your hands. Consider what that does to the children watching. Not the fictional children in the show, the real children watching the show at home. What they absorb across episodes is that the strongest member of their fictional family is the one most willing to use force, and that the force always works. That insulting the wrong person earns a beating. That disappointing the wrong person earns the dessert. That the way you get your way, if you are powerful enough, is to escalate until the other side breaks. The show is teaching this with every punchline. And then, in quieter moments, it is asking you to feel warmth toward the woman doing the teaching. The split is not accidental. The split is the point. The show wants you to love her and to be afraid of her at the same time. Because that is, for a lot of kids, what the mother in their house actually looked like. The show is rendering, in cartoon form, an experience that is true for more people than the sitcom genre usually admits. And Nicole is the rendering. And we still have not even gotten to some of the major episodes yet. We still have not talked about The Fury, the episode where Nicole is revealed to have, literally, the ability to generate energy attacks when she reaches a certain level of anger. We still have not talked about The Authority, where she physically attacks her own mother-in-law, Granny JoJo, over a disagreement about parenting. We still have not talked about The Spoon, where she ends the episode ready to beat a cornered criminal through the bars of a jail cell because the officer promised her 5 uninterrupted minutes before her paperwork was done. We still have not talked about The Finale, where the entire Season 2 arc culminates in the town of Elmore collectively realizing that the Wattersons owe a massive amount of damages for things they, Nicole prominently included, have destroyed over the course of the series, and the town forms a mob to hunt them down. Let us talk about it. Let us talk about all of it. Before we move on, if you are enjoying this analysis, please consider subscribing. It helps the channel tremendously. The Fury is the episode where the show finally just tells you what Nicole is. This is the 37th episode of Season 4. It is the 153rd episode of the series overall. Nicole's old friend and rival, Yuki Yoshida, a childhood companion from her martial arts days, shows up at Elmore Junior High and demands a rematch. The backstory is that Nicole and Yuki used to train together, used to compete together, and had a falling out at the Elmore Kumite, a martial arts tournament where Nicole, then Yuki's protege, defeated her. Yuki, dishonored, left the country. She has now returned. Yuki spray paints "coward" across the side of Nicole's car when Nicole refuses to fight. Nicole, for most of the episode, is genuinely trying to be the better person. She tells her kids, by implication, that fighting does not solve this. She tries to walk away. She tries, for almost the entire runtime, to model the kind of restraint she has spent the rest of the series not modeling at all. And then Yuki escalates. Yuki's husband, Mr. Yoshida, happens to own the Rainbow Factory where Nicole works, and Yuki uses that leverage to threaten Nicole's job. With her family's livelihood on the line, Nicole finally agrees to fight. And when the confrontation comes, Nicole stops restraining herself. The animation shifts, mid-fight, into a style that explicitly references the Dragon Ball series, with Kamehameha-style energy attacks. Nicole and Yuki fight in a style that mirrors Ryu's climactic victory over Sagat in the first Street Fighter, where Ryu unknowingly unleashes an uncontrollable negative energy to defeat a more powerful opponent. The show, in this episode, tells you that Nicole's anger has access to forces beyond the naturalistic, more dangerous than anything Gumball has ever summoned. The most potentially destructive being in the Watterson family, measured by the show's own visual language in this episode, is the mother. And think about what it means for the show to encode that. Think about the message it embeds, quietly, across the whole series. The mother has more power than anyone else in the house. She can defeat a tyrannosaur. She can punch through doors. She can, in the right conditions, manifest something like superhuman force. And she is choosing, every day, to be a mostly functional parent with occasional lapses. The occasional lapses are not the full expression of what she is. The occasional lapses are the expression of what she is choosing to permit herself. She could do worse. And the children are living in the house with this. Once you have seen The Fury, you cannot watch any of the other Nicole episodes the same way. The desert drive in the fridge is no longer a quirky disciplinary moment. It is a moment of restraint by a being who could have done much worse. The demolition of Mr. Rex's house in The Fight is no longer an impressive feat of strength. It is an illustration of a power differential so massive that any use of force on Nicole's part is functionally unilateral. The grocery store chase in The Limit is no longer comic. It is a snapshot of what happens when a near unstoppable being loses her temper at civilians. The children are not living with a strict mother. The children are living with someone who has decided, for private reasons of her own, to behave mostly like a strict mother. And the mostly is the operative word. The mostly is what makes the house livable. The mostly is also what makes the rare moments of full release so terrifying. Because the children do not know, from one day to the next, when the mostly is going to become only sometimes. The show does not invent this. This is the actual lived reality of children raised by parents with serious anger problems. The children do not live in a world of fear at all times. They live in a world of fear some of the time, and the rest of the time is normal. And the normal is the thing that makes the fear bearable. And the fear is the thing that makes the normal unreliable. Nicole's kids exist in this exact conditional state. They love her. They know she loves them. They also know that her love does not prevent the fridge chart, or the desert, or the starvation. They live inside that knowledge. They do not talk about it, because children in that situation rarely talk about it. They just go to school. They come home. They watch their mother fold laundry. They wait to see which Nicole is coming home from work today. And the show tells you this, without saying it out loud, by how the kids act around her. Gumball, in so many scenes, is visibly calibrating. He watches her before he speaks. He adjusts his tone depending on her stance. Darwin, who is the family's empathic centaur, often positions himself between Nicole and Gumball during her outbursts. He steps in. He deflects. He distracts. This is learned behavior. It is a small sibling doing the work of de-escalation because the adult in the room has not learned to de-escalate herself. Anais, for all her precocity, spends large amounts of screen time watching her mother with an expression that is very specifically not a child's expression. It is the expression of an observer who has made peace with what she is observing and has begun planning around it. These are not traits that children develop for no reason. These are traits children develop when the adult in charge is volatile. So the question is not whether the children are damaged. The question is how much. And the answer the show keeps giving you, in moments scattered across seasons, is a lot. A concerning amount. An amount that in a real household would be flagged by any adult paying attention. In Elmore, no adult is paying attention. The father is checked out. The teachers are cruel. The neighbors have their own problems. Nobody is looking. And Nicole knows nobody is looking. And the cycle continues. Before we move on, if you are enjoying this analysis, please consider subscribing. It helps the channel tremendously. The episode The Authority is useful here because it is one of the rare times the show actually puts another adult in the house with Nicole and lets the cameras run. This is the 19th episode of Season 2. Richard has been injured trying to fix the satellite dish and is in the hospital. Granny Jojo, Richard's overbearing mother, decides to move in to take care of the family. Nicole is not happy about this. The show plays her unhappiness for comedy because Granny Jojo is herself a pretty unbearable presence. Jojo is overprotective to the point of traumatizing her grandchildren. Jojo cuts off a prosthetic arm to demonstrate knife safety. Jojo sets off an explosion in Anais's room to demonstrate window safety. Jojo's parenting philosophy is that the world is trying to kill everyone, constantly, and the only defense is paralysis. She is, in her way, as bad as Nicole. just in a different key. But watch the episode for what it reveals about Nicole specifically. The moment JoJo arrives at the hospital and insists on moving in, Nicole starts escalating. Gumball, noticing his mother's rising rage, asks the doctor for the cheapest object in the room. The doctor points to an IV rack. Gumball hands it to Nicole. She bends it out of shape with her bare hands. The doctor mentions it is worth $300. She bends it back. The gag is the pragmatism. The revelation is the fact that she can bend medical equipment with her hands, and that her first instinct upon being challenged is to damage something. The restraint is purely financial. The impulse is not. Throughout the rest of the episode, the conflict between Nicole and JoJo builds. JoJo repeatedly implies that Nicole is an inadequate mother. Nicole absorbs this, absorbs this, absorbs this. And then, when JoJo finally says out loud that a good mother prevents accidents before they happen, Nicole snaps. She declares that she is a good mother, and she physically attacks her mother-in-law. Think about what just happened. Nicole attacked her mother-in-law in her own house, with her children nearby, over a statement about parenting. The statement was rude. The statement was not physically threatening. The statement was a verbal criticism, and Nicole's response was to hit her, in the same episode where she is supposedly defending her parenting skills. The act of hitting JoJo is, in itself, the most complete demonstration that JoJo's critique is at least partially correct. A good mother does not respond to a verbal criticism by physically attacking the critic. Not in the real world. Not in any world. The show treats the hit as a sitcom moment. Characters in sitcoms hit each other. That is the joke. But again, take the sitcom framing off. Put the scene in a realistic, dramatic context. What you have is assault by a family member, in a family home, resolved by nobody mentioning it again. That is not a sitcom scene. That is a pattern. And because Nicole has hit her mother-in-law, the defense that her violence is only aimed at strangers or at threats becomes impossible. She hits her own family. She hits her extended family. She damages property she owns. She assaults security guards. And at the end of The Spoon, the 8th episode of season 1, she is moments away from beating a cornered criminal through the bars of a jail cell because the donut cop has promised her 5 uninterrupted minutes before her paperwork is done. The episode ends, freeze frame, with Nicole rolling up her sleeve and Sal left thumb looking terrified in the next cell over. The implication is unambiguous. The camera cuts to black before she strikes. But the threat is what the episode ends on. And the viewer, per the show's framing, is supposed to cheer. Because Sal is, in the show's framing, a bad guy. Which is exactly the moral logic of The Fight. Bad guys get beaten. That is the rule. Except the person deciding who is a bad guy is Nicole. And her criteria for being a bad guy are remarkably loose. Tina's father was a bad guy because his daughter was rumored to have bruised her son. Sal was a bad guy because he had framed her for his own robbery. Granny JoJo was a bad guy because she criticized her mothering. The kids, in The Hero, were bad guys because they insulted their dad. Gumball, in The Fridge, was a bad guy because he had not achieved enough that week. Each of these people, by Nicole's internal court, deserved a physical response. And each of them got one, or nearly one. And each response was called justice by the show. But a system where one person unilaterally decides who deserves violence, and carries out that violence and faces no consequences, is not a system of justice. It is a system of tyranny. Nicole's household is a small tyranny. The kids are the subjects. And the queen is not always benevolent. Before we move on, if you are enjoying this analysis, please consider subscribing. It helps the channel tremendously. The strongest proof that the show itself knows what it has been building is the episode called The Finale. This is the 40th and final episode of Season 2. It is the 76th episode of the series overall. And it is, structurally, an accounting. The episode opens with the Wattersons paging through their family photo album, laughing at happy memories. The doorbell rings. Mrs. Jotunheim is at the door. She announces that, because 75% of Elmore has been destroyed after her son Kenneth's rampage, the Wattersons must pay for the damages. The bill comes to $800,000. That is the number. $800,000. Throughout the episode, the show sends character after character to the Watterson door to add grievances. Principal Brown announces that Gumball and Darwin must restart school from kindergarten because all they do is aggravate people until they chase them. Mr. Small sues them. Nicole and Anais go to the Justice Department, where Mrs. Miller, the cupcake-shaped clerk, has massive piles of files on the Wattersons' past misdemeanors. Let that phrase sit. Massive piles of files on a single family, in a single town. The clerk sarcastically suggests the Wattersons apologize to everyone they have ever wronged. Nicole, missing the sarcasm, decides to try. And then, in the final act, the accumulated grievances of the town coalesce into an angry mob. The citizens of Elmore, who have been tormented by the Wattersons for 2 straight seasons of damage, converge on their house. The screen cuts to black on Gumball, declaring that their only hope is a reality reset. The show is telling you something very specific in that finale. It is telling you that, by its own internal continuity, the Wattersons are not a beloved family. They are, to their neighbors, a blight. The damage they have caused is not abstract. It has a number. It has files. It has victims. The family has ridden along on the goodwill of the sitcom format, which forgives chaos because chaos is funny. But the show, for one episode, drops the format. The show lets the consequences into the room, and the consequences are bleak. Nicole is not the only one responsible for the $800,000, of course. Gumball does damage constantly. Richard does damage constantly. Darwin is a frequent contributor. Anais picks her moments. But Nicole is disproportionately responsible for the specific subcategory of damage that looks like an adult going after another adult or a building. She is the one who destroyed Mr. Rex's house. She is the one who demolished large parts of the supermarket in The Limit. She is the one who bends medical equipment and punches holes in doors. The show keeps telling you this. And then the show keeps resetting the world. The reset button is the show's biggest lie. The reset button is how the show tells you the consequences do not stick. The reset button is how Nicole gets away with everything. Because at the start of every new episode, the world has been quietly restored to something like order. Mr. Rex still has a scarred eye, but he has a home again. The supermarket Nicole trashed is open for business the next time it is shown. The mob of townspeople from the finale disperses, and nobody mentions it the following season. And in the space of those resets, in the quiet where the consequences used to be, Nicole is free to do it all again. But the reset is a narrative convenience, not a moral fact. The reset button does not actually exist in the story world. The reset button is the sitcom format working. Inside the story world, Mr. Rex still has a scar. Inside the story world, there are still massive piles of files in the Justice Department. The show shows you this in the finale, and then, by the next season, walks away from it. But if you hold the continuity steady, if you refuse to let the reset override what has been shown, the picture that emerges is of a woman who has left a trail of wreckage across an entire town, and who walks through it every day as if she did not. And her children walk through it too, and her children know it is there. And that knowledge is part of what growing up in the Watterson house means. Before we move on, if you are enjoying this analysis, please consider subscribing. It helps the channel tremendously. Let us talk about The Rival. This is the first episode of Season 6. It is the 197th episode overall. It aired on January 5th, 2018. And it is the episode that provides the most direct evidence that Nicole's parenting has produced, in at least one of her children, an echo of her own pathology, even in infancy. The episode is a flashback, set 4 years before the start of the show, when Gumball is 8, Darwin is 6, and Anais is being born. Nicole is in labor in the car. Richard, being Richard, decides to drive through the hospital rather than park. The car enters through one wall of the emergency room. A doctor shouts push. Anais is delivered in the seconds the car takes to cross the building. The car exits through the opposite wall with a newborn Anais in the back seat. Gumball and Darwin are delighted. They imagine all the things they will do with their new sister. What actually happens is that Anais, from her first day, is presented as a strategic operator of terrifying sophistication. The show makes this explicit. Baby Anais, still in her crib, vandalizes her own playpen to write "No one loves you" with surprisingly clean handwriting, signed with Gumball and Darwin's names. When Gumball points out he would not write that cleanly, Aeneas erases the message and rewrites it with childlike misspellings to match Gumball's actual handwriting. She is hours old. She is already forging her older brother's handwriting to frame him for a crime she is committing against herself. Throughout the episode, baby Aeneas attempts to get her brothers hurt or killed multiple times. She puts them in the road where they almost get hit by a truck. She rigs their room with a candle tied to fire extinguishers. She traps Darwin in his fishbowl with an anvil on top of it. She orchestrates a chain of near-fatal incidents that culminate, near the end of the episode, with Gumball nearly being incinerated at a junkyard after Aeneas smuggles herself out of the house in a box the brothers were trying to dispose of. When they save the box, discover Aeneas is not inside, and then find her, they run to hug her in relief. She tries to push them into molten iron. They escape. She attempts her first word. Her first word is, in Baby Talk subtitles, the sentence, "Gumball did it," spoken to Nicole and Richard, who have just walked in. The screen cuts to black. Now, the question, where did Aeneas learn this? Where did a newborn, on her first day in the world, get the moral framework in which framing her siblings for things she did to herself is the correct strategy? The show, in its usual indirect way, has an answer. Aeneas is Nicole's biological daughter. Various episodes establish that Aeneas inherits her mother's anger, her mother's strength, and her mother's intelligence. What the show lets you infer, in the quiet between episodes, is that Aeneas has also inherited something like the moral logic of her mother's household. She has inherited the understanding that consequences can be engineered, that blame can be redirected, that the siblings in the house are rivals for a scarce resource. She is, even at her youngest, operating this logic in a very effective way. The parents, in The Rival, never catch her. The brothers always take the blame. That is the cycle, and it is already visible. Nicole's household has produced a daughter who, even as an infant, is calculating. The show stages this as comedy. The show does not say Nicole made her this way, but the evidence is on the page. The pattern is on the page. The show lets you see, and here's the thing that makes it bearable. In the show's ongoing present, Aeneas grows out of the baby version of this. By the time she is 4 and appearing in the regular episodes, she is no longer trying to hurt Gumball and Darwin. She loves them. She protects them. She is, in many episodes, the smartest and most emotionally stable member of the family. But the underlying capacity is there, and every so often, in an episode where her competitive streak surfaces, you see a flash of what she could have become if the rest of her personality had not grown in. She could have become her mother. She may still, in some ways, be in the process of becoming her mother. The show never closes the door on that possibility. It just lets her be, for now, a better version of Nicole than Nicole is. Before we move on, if you are enjoying this analysis, please consider subscribing. It helps the channel tremendously. The episode called The Punishment is worth dwelling on because it is, unusually, an episode that is willing to be honest about the relationship between Gumball and his mother. The Punishment comes from the revival era of the franchise. It is the 9th episode of the 2nd season of The Wonderfully Weird World of Gumball, which is the direct continuation of the original series. Episode-wise, it is the 269th of the franchise overall. The episode puts Gumball and Nicole in constant direct conflict throughout a single morning. They wake up angry at each other. They destroy each other's breakfast. They crash the car. They fight physically through the halls of the school on the way to a disciplinary meeting. The meeting is conducted by Felicity Parham, the mother of Billy, who has invoked her rights as a mother to take over the PTA and assign Gumball 2 months of summer school, with Nicole required to drive him there and prepare his meals. In the middle of this conflict, there is a small, quiet scene. Nicole asks Gumball, genuinely, why he is always late to school. Gumball reveals that because Nicole is always busy with her job, him being late to school is the closest he gets to spending quality time with her. Stop on that line. Sit with it. This is a 12-year-old telling his mother that the only way he can think of to spend time with her is to misbehave. That the attention she gives him when she is punishing him is, from his end, indistinguishable from love. That he would rather be yelled at than be ignored. That her presence, any presence, even angry presence, is what he needs. And that the thing the household is designed around, which is her work and her stress and the pressure of keeping everything together, has produced in him a specific hollow that he fills by being bad. This is one of the most devastating pieces of dialogue in the entire franchise. And the show handles it the way the show handles everything Nicole related. It registers the line. Nicole is briefly moved. She promises to spend more time with him. The episode then moves into a montage of the two of them pranking Felicity together. The montage is funny. Felicity eventually cracks under the stress and rear-ends a police car. She is arrested. Nicole drives away with Gumball, triumphant. The show frames their bonding through prank as a good thing. Their relationship is, the narrative suggests, stronger now. They have shared something. They have had fun. But the thing Gumball said earlier has not been fully addressed. It has been answered with more chaos. The solution to the fact that Gumball can only get his mother's attention by misbehaving is, in the episode, for them to misbehave together. That is not addressing the hollow. That is filling the hollow with more of what created it. The problem was that Nicole was too busy and too stressed to be present, and the child had adapted by making himself into a problem so that she would attend to him. The fix, per this episode, is for them to jointly become a problem for a third party. The fix is not actually a fix. The fix is a different version of the same distortion. The show is so used to framing Nicole as a good mother that it cannot quite let the Gumball line land where it should. The line should be the crisis point of the episode. The line should force a real reckoning. Instead, the line is absorbed into a revenge montage, and by the time the credits roll, everyone is laughing again. But the line is on the tape. The line is canon. The line cannot be unsaid. Gumball, in a quiet moment of honesty, told his mother that the attention she gives him when she is angry is the only attention he reliably gets, and the show let him say it. And anyone paying attention now has to think about what that means for every other episode in the series. Every outburst, every punishment, every screaming chase scene, all of them, from Gumball's perspective, are also the closest thing to a hug his mother has time to give. That is a bleak fact. That is a fact that reframes the entire series. The chases are not just conflict. They are, to the boy being chased, also a strange kind of contact. Because she is paying attention to him. Because she is choosing to pursue him. Because in those moments, she is not at the Rainbow Factory. She is not stressed about money. She is not absent. She is there. Fully, lethally, but there. And if you think about a generation of kids who grew up watching Gumball and took Nicole as a model of mother love, this is the fact that becomes the hardest one to carry. Because a lot of those kids recognize the pattern. A lot of those kids understood, implicitly, what Gumball was saying. A lot of them had versions of that arrangement in their own lives, where attention came in bursts of heat, and where the heat was preferable to the cold, and where you learned to trigger the heat just to confirm your mother was still in the room. Before we move on, if you are enjoying this analysis, please consider subscribing. It helps the channel tremendously. The 16th episode of Season 6 is called The Parents. It is the 212th episode of the series. It reveals something about Nicole that reframes her entire story, though the show presents it as a sweet reconciliation tale. Nicole, at Elmore shopping, runs into her estranged parents, Mary and Daniel Senecourt. The episode establishes that she has not spoken to them in 20 years. Given that Nicole is 38, that means she walked out of her parents' lives when she was 18, the same age at which her mother-in-law, Granny Jojo, kicked Richard out. Nicole and Richard met at a karate tournament as teenagers. The dating was disapproved of, and Nicole, at 18, left her family for good. 20 years of silence. Let that settle. A child estranged from her parents for an entire adult lifetime, and on the day she runs into them in a grocery store, the years collapse. Gumball and the rest of the family end up dragging the parents back to the house, at which point Nicole finally tells them, to their faces, everything she has held on to. She tells them about their absurd demands, about their impossible expectations, about how they never approved of Richard, about how they never even showed up to her wedding. The Senecourts insist everything they did was for Nicole's own good. They claim they actually tried to attend her wedding, but misread the RSVP as a small town in Moldavia and flew there instead. This is a joke. It is also the show's way of making the reconciliation possible. The reconciliation happens. The parents apologize. Nicole cuts off her mother mid-excuse and says she just wants them back. They hug. The family is restored, which is beautiful, which is touching, which is also, in the context of the rest of the series, deeply suspicious. Because what Nicole shows her parents in that episode is not what she shows her own children. She shows her parents a sustained, confrontational, honest discussion of their failures. She sets boundaries. She speaks her truth. She accepts their apology and then asks to have them back. This is the behavior of an emotionally mature adult. This is the Nicole that could, if she chose, exist in every episode. This is the Nicole who could look at her 12-year-old son and actually see him, and apologize for the desert, and apologize for the chart, and apologize for the fact that the only time he feels close to her is when he has made her angry. This Nicole exists. The show has shown you she exists. She is in The Parents. She is capable. And then, in the next episode, she does not do it. She goes back to her household and does not apologize for any of it, does not raise any of it. The difference between how she is able to treat her parents and how she treats her children is not a lack of tools. It is a choice. The tools are there. She is just not using them downstairs, where they would cost something. This is the gap the whole argument lives in, between what Nicole could do and what Nicole does. Between the mother, capable of sitting across from Mary Senecourt and holding her accountable, and the mother capable of driving her 12-year-old to the desert as a teaching moment. The gap between those two women is not external circumstances. It is will. It is decision. The woman is one woman. The choices are different choices, and the choices that hurt the most are the ones she keeps making at home. Before we move on, if you are enjoying this analysis, please consider subscribing. It helps the channel tremendously. Think for a moment about the cumulative charge sheet that the show has produced. Let the evidence stack. Child endangerment in the form of the desert abandonment in the fridge. Reckless endangerment in the form of the rooftop lightning rod scene in the same episode. Attempting to shoot her own child in the back with a paintball gun in the same episode. Deprivation of food and basic hygiene for 2 minors over an extended period in The Hero. Assault and property destruction resulting in what appears to be permanent disfigurement of Mr. Rex in The Fight. Assault on Granny JoJo in The Authority. Repeated destruction of commercial property in The Limit. Conspicuous intent to beat a detained prisoner at the end of The Spoon. Flight from debt obligations in The DVD. A physical brawl with her own son through the halls of his school in The Punishment. Repeated property damage. Repeated threats. Repeated intimidation. The list is not exaggerated. The list is what the show actually shows. Any single item would be grounds for real-world intervention. The aggregate is grounds for a custody hearing, a criminal trial, and probably a court-ordered mental health evaluation. The fact that the show's universe has no functioning consequence system for her does not mean the acts are not acts. The reset button does not unmake the acts. The acts are in the record. The acts are Nicole. And here is where the argument has to become careful. Because it would be easy to conclude from all of this that Nicole Watterson is a monster and that the show is, accidentally or otherwise, glorifying domestic abuse. That is not what is happening. That is not what this video is saying. Nicole is not a monster. She is a person. A specific kind of person. A person who loves her children and hurts them, sometimes in the same afternoon. A person who is capable of extraordinary tenderness, who cries in the choices at the memory of her kids' first steps, who defends Gumball from bullies at school with the focused intensity of a woman who knows what being bullied does to a kid, because she was bullied herself from childhood through her wedding day. The love is real. The love has never been in question. What is in question is whether love alone is enough to excuse what love, in her specific case, does not prevent. And the answer the show keeps giving, subtly, under its laugh track and its resets, is no. Love is not enough. Love can exist beside cruelty. Love can coexist with the desert drive and the starvation and the chart on the fridge. This is, in fact, the hardest thing the show teaches. It teaches that the woman who loves you and the woman who hurts you can be the same woman. That the household you grew up in can be warm and can be a place where you were harmed at the same time without contradiction. That real families are not, in this respect, simple. That a good mother, measured against certain scales, can also be measured against others. A person her children will spend their lives recovering from. The show is honest about this in a way almost no animated children's program has ever been. Other shows show ideal moms. Other shows show absent moms, or dead moms, or evil stepmoms. Gumball shows a mom who is in the middle of the spectrum, who is trying, who is failing, who is loving, who is dangerous, who is all of these things inside a single woman, and who keeps walking into the kitchen the next morning to do it all again. There is no resolution. There is no catharsis. There is only the show, season after season, showing you this woman living her life. That is what real moms are like for a lot of people. That is the show's small, difficult gift to its audience. It will not pretend the mother it loves is uncomplicated. It will not pretend the violence is not there. It will not pretend the chart is not on the fridge. It just shows all of it. And it leaves you to decide what to make of what you have seen. Before we move on, if you are enjoying this analysis, please consider subscribing. It helps the channel tremendously. But saying all of that still leaves the question the video title asks. Should Nicole Watterson be in prison? And the answer is, finally, yes and no. Yes, in the sense that, taken literally, the acts she commits on screen are acts that would, in any functioning legal system, result in her incarceration. She has committed assault, child endangerment, deprivation, destruction of property on a significant scale, and flight from a lawful debt. She has, on paper, the charge sheet of a career criminal. In any world that took its own continuity seriously, she would have been removed from her home, separated from her children, and given the therapeutic and legal intervention she has never once offered. No, in the sense that the show has carefully built a context around her that makes prison feel like the wrong answer. Because Nicole is a product of a cycle. Because Nicole is trying, in her fractured way, to do better than her mother did by her. Because Nicole's children love her. And the love is not merely conditioned attachment, it is also real, earned in the moments when she holds them and means it. Because sending Nicole to prison would leave those children with Richard, and with Jojo, who is actively traumatizing, and the kids would not be better off. Because the problem Nicole represents is not a problem prison can solve. The problem she represents is the problem of broken adults trying to raise whole children, and the fact that we do not, as a society, have a great answer for that problem. We have mostly the hope that the next generation does a little better than the last. And Nicole, measured by that scale, is maybe, in some narrow ways, doing a little better. Her kids are not the dead-eyed products of Mary Senecourt. They are chaotic, creative, resilient, strange kids who will carry scars and who will, probably, pass along a slightly reduced version of the pattern to their own kids, and so on, until someone, generations from now, finally breaks it clean. Which does not mean she should not face consequences. It means the consequences that would actually help are not the consequences the justice system offers. They are therapy. They are accountability. They are a real reckoning with the desert drive and the fridge chart and the paintball ambush. A real sitting down with her children, now that they are old enough to understand. And a real hearing of what she did, and a real promise to do differently. The show does not stage this scene. The show, for all its honesty, cannot quite get there, because the show is a sitcom, and sitcoms reset. And the reset button keeps Nicole out of the chair. But imagine it. Imagine the last episode the show never made, in which Gumball is grown, and he comes home, and he sits down with his mother at the kitchen table, and he tells her what he remembered about the desert, the way the sand felt, the way the car got smaller, the way he kept expecting her to turn around. And imagine Nicole listening, this time, without making it about her own pain, without invoking Miss Simeon, without mentioning the Senecourts, just listening, letting the memory be his memory, letting the harm be harm. And imagine her, after he is done, not defending herself, not explaining, just saying the words that the show has never quite allowed her to say. I am sorry. The show will never give you that episode. The show is not structured to give you that episode. But the show has, across its entire run, given you every ingredient for it. The backstory, the self-knowledge in The Limit, where she sees her own monster face. The tenderness of the choices. The honesty of the punishment. She has the capacity. She has the history. She has the reason. She just needs the scene. And if you, watching this, are the child of a Nicole, then maybe the thing this analysis is really for is the permission to admit that your mother was not simple. That she loved you. That she hurt you. That both are true. That the laugh track in your head does not have to keep playing every time you remember the desert drive. That you are allowed to name what happened without needing to decide whether she was a monster or a saint. That she was, probably, a person. A damaged person. A person who did her best with what she had, and whose best included some things that should not have been done. You are allowed to hold both. You are allowed to love her and to know what she did. That is what Gumball, the show, teaches, quietly, under its slapstick, without making a scene of it. With Nicole Watterson standing at the refrigerator, a chart in her hand, a smile on her face, and the word loser echoing from somewhere she cannot quite place, passed along now to the next person in the room. That is the whole story. So, should Nicole Watterson be in prison? On the evidence, yes. Legally, undeniably, on the record. She has assaulted family members. She has endangered minors. She has destroyed property. She has disfigured at least one T-Rex. She has starved her children. She has abandoned one of them on a remote desert road. She has tried to shoot one of them in the back. She has participated in actual flight from lawful deaths. She has bent medical equipment and punched holes in doors and chased civilians through grocery stores in a state the show animates as monstrous. And across hundreds of episodes, she has never faced a single meaningful consequence for any of it. She has, on paper, the charge sheet of a career criminal. In any world that took its own continuity seriously, she would have been removed from her home, separated from her children, and given the therapeutic and legal intervention she is never once offered. But prison, on its own, does not fix her. Prison does not give her kids the mother they needed. Prison does not undo the chart on the fridge or rebuild Mr. Rex's house or pay Mrs. Jotunheim the money she is owed. Prison is a consequence. Prison is not a healing. And what Nicole Watterson needs, and what, in a quieter show, the writers would give her, is a reckoning, a room, a chair, a child across from her, an apology, a change that takes, not just for one episode, but for the rest of her life. The show does not give us that. The show leaves her where it found her, standing in the kitchen, smiling, tired, loved, dangerous, folding laundry, checking the chart, waiting for the next Monday morning, waiting for the next supermarket trip, waiting for the next thing that pushes her over her limit, where the yellow eyes will come back and the claws will come out, and the children, her children, the ones she would die for, will run. And the run, the show tells you, is also love. That is what it means to be a Watterson. That is what it means to live inside her house. You love her. You run from her. You come back. You do it all again tomorrow. And nobody ever goes to jail. And the desert is always there. And the chart is always there. And the door that she punched in the pilot, the very first thing she ever did in this whole long story, is somehow, by the next episode, quietly fixed. As if none of it ever happened. As if this were a normal home. As if it had never been any other way. If you enjoyed this video essay, make sure to subscribe. Thanks for watching, and I will see you in the next.